You don't have a discipline problem. You have a comfort addiction, and it is killing your future. Quietly, not dramatically, not loudly, not in a way that forces you to notice. That is what makes it lethal. Comfort feels safe. It feels deserved. It feels reasonable. It feels human. And that is exactly why it destroys you. You think danger looks like chaos, collapse, visible failure. You think destruction is loud. You think self-sabotage comes with warning signs. It doesn't. It comes disguised as, "I'll start tomorrow." It comes disguised as, "I just need a break." It comes disguised as scrolling for a few minutes, skipping one workout, postponing one difficult conversation, lowering one standard. Comfort never attacks you directly. It invites you, and you keep accepting. You say you want to change your body, but you protect your appetite. You say you want wealth, but you protect your evenings. You say you want respect, but you avoid confrontation. You say you want mastery, but you escape boredom. You are not confused about what to do. You are unwilling to feel discomfort long enough to become someone else. That is the truth. Comfort feels safe because it asks nothing from you. It does not demand evolution. It does not demand confrontation. It does not demand that you examine the gap between who you say you are and what you repeatedly do. It lets you remain intact. And remaining intact is the problem. Growth is violent. Steel does not become stronger without heat. Structure does not rise without pressure. Foundations are not poured in silence and ease. They are carved into resistance. Look at history. Abraham Lincoln did not become who he was through ease. He endured repeated defeat, public humiliation, political loss. He did not retreat into safety when he failed. He let the failure reshape him. Thomas Edison did not stumble into invention through comfort. Thousands of failed attempts, repetition so monotonous it would break a weaker mind. He did not negotiate with boredom. Andrew Carnegie built steel empires not from convenience, but from relentless, grinding standards that most would consider extreme. These men were not superhuman. They were intolerant of comfort. You, on the other hand, have built your life around avoiding friction. You avoid difficult rooms. You avoid difficult conversations. You avoid difficult mornings. You avoid difficult self-reflection. And every time you choose comfort, something inside you shrinks, not dramatically, quietly. Your confidence erodes. Your self-trust fractures. Your standards lower. Because every time you break a promise to yourself, your identity adjusts downward. You think identity is something you declare. It is not. Identity is something you prove to yourself through repetition. You say, "I'm disciplined," but when the alarm rings, what do? You say, "I'm focused," but when distraction calls, what do you choose? You say, "I'm serious about my goals," but when effort becomes uncomfortable, do you continue? Your actions are not random. They are votes. Every small decision is a vote for the person you are becoming. Comfort collects those votes. It builds a version of you that avoids pressure. And then you look in the mirror and wonder why you don't respect yourself. Because deep down, you know. You know the gap. You know what you could be, and you know what you repeatedly choose instead. Comfort feels safe because it removes immediate pain, but it compounds long-term regret. Discomfort feels dangerous because it requires immediate effort, but it compounds long-term power. You have been optimizing for short-term relief. That is why you feel stagnant. That is why your ambition feels heavy. That is why your goals feel distant. Because you are trying to build a powerful future with a comfort-based identity. That is architectural sabotage. You cannot construct strength on a soft foundation. The mind adapts to what it experiences repeatedly. If you repeatedly avoid difficulty, your nervous system becomes fragile. Small obstacles feel overwhelming. Minor stress feels catastrophic. Ordinary resistance feels unbearable. But if you repeatedly lean into discomfort, early mornings, difficult tasks, hard conversations, strict standards, your threshold expands. You become dangerous. Not loud, not arrogant, dangerous in silence. Because you no longer negotiate with resistance. Comfort trains you to escape. Discipline trains you to endure. And endurance is the dividing line between average and extraordinary. You think comfort protects your mental health. It doesn't. It weakens it. When you constantly shield yourself from challenge, you lose your tolerance for pressure. You become emotionally reactive. You seek validation. You depend on external reassurance. You need applause to continue. You need motivation to begin. You need perfect conditions to perform. That is fragility disguised as self-care. There is a difference between recovery and indulgence. Recovery is strategic. Indulgence is habitual. Recovery prepares you for battle. Indulgence convinces you there is no battle. But there is always a battle. The battle is against entropy. Left alone, everything declines. Your body weakens, your focus scatters, your standards drift, your ambition dulls. Comfort accelerates that decline. It tells you that drifting is natural. It tells you that easing up is harmless. It tells you that small compromises do not matter. They do. Every compromise shapes your identity. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. And your standards are revealed in private. When no one is watching, when no one is praising, when no one would know if you stopped. That is where comfort lives. It waits for privacy. It waits for silence. It waits for the moment when external pressure disappears. Then it asks, why push? And you listen. You listen because pushing is uncomfortable, because discipline is repetitive, because repetition is boring. You want excitement. You want inspiration. You want intensity. But transformation is built on monotony. The gym session you do when you don't feel like it, the page you write when your mind is tired, the skill you practice when it feels pointless. That is where identity shifts. Not in the highlight, in the repetition. Comfort cannot survive repetition. It needs novelty. It needs stimulation. It needs relief. Discipline thrives in repetition. It builds neural pathways that remove negotiation. It creates automatic standards. It replaces emotion with execution. You do not need to feel ready. You execute. You do not need to feel inspired. You execute. You do not need to feel confident. You execute. That is the death of comfort. And that is the birth of power. But most people never reach that point because the transition is brutal. There is a moment when you begin to withdraw from comfort, and it feels like loss. You lose late nights of indulgence. You lose easy validation. You lose the illusion of relaxation without consequence. It feels restrictive. It feels isolating. You look around and see others drifting, laughing, indulging without visible punishment. And you question yourself. You think, maybe I'm being too extreme. You are not extreme. You are early. Standards feel lonely at first because they expose how low the bar truly is. When Henry Ford refined his production systems, he did not ask the market for permission. He imposed a higher standard of efficiency. It looked obsessive. It looked rigid. It built an empire. High standards always look unreasonable to those addicted to comfort, because comfort normalizes mediocrity, and mediocrity defends itself. If you raise your standards, you will feel friction from others. They will call you intense. They will call you obsessed. They will call you too serious. But what they are really saying is this:
You are reminding me of what I am not willing to do. Comfort builds community around avoidance. Discipline builds isolation around growth. And you must choose which environment will shape you. If you remain in rooms where comfort is celebrated, your ambition will shrink to survive socially. If you build a private code that does not bend to the room, you become unshakable. This is where identity becomes irreversible. At first, you act disciplined. Then you repeat disciplined actions. Then you begin to see yourself as someone who does not break. And once that shift happens, comfort loses its leverage. Because you are no longer choosing discipline, you are protecting identity. A disciplined person does not wake up early because it is convenient. They wake up early because that is who they are. A disciplined person does not train because it is exciting. They train because that is who they are. A disciplined person does not keep promises because it feels good. They keep them because breaking them would fracture their identity. When discipline becomes identity, motivation becomes irrelevant. You do not debate with yourself. You execute. But you are not there yet. You are still negotiating. You are still bargaining with comfort. You say, just this once. You say, I've earned it. You say, it won't matter. It always matters. Because the cost is not the action. The cost is the signal you send yourself. You teach yourself what is acceptable. You teach yourself how serious you are. You teach yourself whether your word means anything. And when your word means nothing to you, nothing external can compensate for that internal weakness. Comfort feels safe because it keeps you unchanged, but unchanged is decay. Unchanged is stagnation. Unchanged is quiet surrender. If you do not deliberately construct yourself, you will unconsciously deteriorate. There is no neutral, only ascent or decline. And comfort is gravity. It pulls you downward gently, so gently you barely notice until years pass, until your potential feels distant, until your ambition feels unrealistic, until you look at someone disciplined and call them gifted instead of honest. You do not lack talent. You lack intolerance for comfort. You are too willing to stay warm. You are too willing to stay entertained. You are too willing to stay approved. But growth requires cold. Growth requires friction. Growth requires the willingness to be misunderstood. When steel is forged, it does not argue with the fire. It endures.
When foundations are poured, the ground is broken first. Destruction precedes construction. You cannot build a new identity without demolishing the comfortable one. And demolition is loud internally. It will expose your laziness. It will expose your inconsistency. It will expose your excuses. You will see clearly how often you lied to yourself. That clarity will hurt, but that pain is productive. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once you refuse to participate in it, everything shifts. You stop chasing feelings. You start honoring standards. You stop seeking ease. You start seeking strength. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You start asking, who am I becoming? That question changes everything. Because if you are becoming someone strong, then comfort is not safety. It is sabotage. If you are becoming someone disciplined, then boredom is not punishment. It is training. If you are becoming someone reliable, then sacrifice is not loss. It is alignment. Comfort only feels safe because you are attached to who you have been. Let that version go. It has protected you from pressure, but it has also protected you from power. There is a version of you that does not flinch when things get hard. A version that does not scroll to escape thought. A version that does not compromise standards for approval. A version that does not wait for motivation. That version is not built in comfort. It is built in repetition. It is built in isolation. It is built in private battles no one sees. And once it is built, it does not collapse easily, because it was forged under pressure. Comfort cannot create that. It can only prevent it.
So ask yourself with brutal honesty, what has comfort given you? Temporary relief? Momentary pleasure? Social acceptance? Now ask yourself what it has cost you. Strength, respect, momentum, self-trust, time. You do not get those back. Every comfortable compromise is a small erosion. An erosion is silent until the structure fails. One day you will either look back and see a pattern of disciplined construction, or you will see a pattern of comfortable avoidance. There is no third option. You cannot be powerful and comfortable. You cannot be exceptional and indulgent. You cannot build something rare with habits that are common. The shift begins when you stop asking how to feel better and start asking how to become harder. Harder to distract, harder to break, harder to negotiate with. This is not about suffering for attention. This is about choosing friction as a strategy. You deliberately expose yourself to difficulty. You deliberately remove easy escapes. You deliberately raise standards beyond what feels reasonable. Because reasonable created your current ceiling, and your current ceiling is suffocating you. Comfort feels safe, but it keeps you small. It keeps you dependent. It keeps you average. And average is the slowest form of self-destruction. You do not wake up one day destroyed. You wake up one day unchanged, and that's worse. So decide, will you protect comfort or will you protect your future? Because you cannot protect both. If you continue choosing comfort, nothing dramatic will happen tomorrow. You will simply remain who you are, and that should terrify you. Because who you are right now is a collection of tolerated compromises. But if you choose discipline, cold, repetitive, uncelebrated discipline, you will feel resistance immediately. You will feel the pull of old habits. You will feel the temptation to soften. Do not soften. Endure. Endure long enough for your identity to shift. Endure long enough that discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. Endure long enough that comfort no longer whispers with authority. Because once you cross that threshold, there is no going back. You will see comfort for what it is, not safety, decay. And you will never again confuse ease with peace. You will choose pressure. You will choose repetition. You will choose standards that isolate you. Because you will understand something most people never do. Comfort feels safe, but it destroys the very person you are trying to become. And once you see that clearly, you either return to sleep or you wake up permanently. There is no comfortable middle. Choose. You already know which version of you is winning. The comfortable one, the one that negotiates, the one that says not today, the one that protects feelings over standards. And every time that version wins, it becomes stronger. Neural pathways deepen, excuses become automatic, avoidance becomes instinct. You are not simply choosing comfort, you are training it, you are reinforcing it, you are building a personality around it.
And then you wonder why discipline feels unnatural. Because you have practiced the opposite. You have practiced quitting when it is inconvenient. You have practiced distraction when it is difficult. You have practiced indulgence when it is uncomfortable. Practice creates identity, not intention. You can intend to be powerful all you want, but what you practice daily is what you become. This is why comfort is so dangerous. It does not look like sabotage. It looks like self-preservation. It feels like protecting your energy. It feels like being kind to yourself. But there is a difference between compassion and weakness. Compassion says, recover strategically so you can return stronger. Weakness says, avoid anything that strains you. Comfort disguises weakness as balance. You say you are finding balance, but your balance always leans toward ease. Your balance never seems to lean toward growth. You balance effort with reward, but the reward often comes before the effort. You celebrate before you build. You relax before you earn. You rest before you are tired. That is not balance. That is preemptive surrender. Look carefully at your patterns. When something becomes hard, you search for relief. When something becomes repetitive, you search for stimulation. When something becomes uncertain, you search for reassurance. You are constantly searching because you have not built tolerance. Tolerance for boredom, tolerance for silence, tolerance for not being praised, tolerance for slow progress. And without tolerance, you will always retreat to comfort. High performers are not emotionally different. They simply tolerate more. They tolerate the grind longer. They tolerate isolation longer. They tolerate delayed gratification longer. That is the difference. Not talent, tolerance. When Thomas Edison ran thousands of experiments, he did not have a different nervous system. He had a higher tolerance for monotony and failure. When Abraham Lincoln endured repeated political defeat, he did not possess magical confidence. He possessed endurance. And endurance is built by choosing discomfort repeatedly until it becomes familiar. You avoid discomfort because it feels foreign. It feels like danger. Your brain interprets resistance as threat, but it is not threat. It is transformation. The problem is not that you feel resistance. The problem is that you obey it. The moment discomfort arises, you interpret it as a sign to stop, instead of a sign that you are at the edge. The edge is where growth occurs, but you keep stepping back from it. You step back into entertainment. You step back into validation. You step back into habits that require nothing from you. And every time you step back, the edge moves further away, until one day you realize you have built a life far from your potential, not because you were incapable, because you were comfortable. Comfort creates a soft identity. A soft identity seeks approval. It avoids conflict. It avoids risk. It avoids situations where it might look inadequate. So you stay in rooms where you are not challenged. You stay in routines that do not stretch you. You stay around people who do not demand more. And slowly your ambition suffocates. Not violently, quietly. You tell yourself you are being realistic. You tell yourself you are being patient. But patience without pressure is stagnation. There must be tension. Tension between who you are and who you refuse to remain. If there is no tension, there is no evolution. Right now, your life is too comfortable to force change. You are not in enough pain to demand transformation. So you drift. And drifting feels harmless until years accumulate, until opportunities disappear, until energy declines. Then comfort reveals its cost. By then, your habits are solidified. Your tolerance is low. Your identity is rigid. It is much harder to rebuild at that stage, which is why you must feel the urgency now. Not panic, clarity. You must see comfort as an enemy, not a friend. An enemy that smiles, an enemy that speaks softly, an enemy that never raises its voice because it does not need to. It knows you will comply. You comply when you delay. You comply when you justify. You comply when you say, just once. There is no just once. There is only reinforcement. Every action reinforces something, either strength or softness, either standards or excuses, either discipline or comfort. You cannot reinforce both. You cannot train two identities at the same time. And right now, you are split. Part of you wants expansion. Part of you wants ease. The stronger part will win. And strength is built through repetition.